Hello, mate.
You all right?
How was your coronation weekend?
It's good actually. We I mean, other than the rain being horrendous, we had like a vintage tea party in front of the screen whilst he was putting the crown on his head.
Nice.
It was lovely actually. We bought because we had me and Meg had a vintage tea party wedding. So we had all this china that we had, and we
Like on your wedding or just
for our wedding. Like, we didn't have
just
like
as another.
we didn't have like a dinner. We had a vintage tea
Vintage tea
party.
party.
So like loads of tea stands.
I don't think I got invited to your wedding. So.
Probably not. I think that was in one of the dark ages where
Disgraceful.
Well, you know, you didn't invite me to yours, so.
Don't be tit for tat. Anyway, I had a lovely coronation weekend. Thanks very much for asking.
I barely finished describing mine. Jeez.
Yeah, I was done.
Okay.
Vintage tea party. I was just fell asleep. I can't even remember what I did. Oh, yes, I did. Went to my mum's, actually. I had a garden party. Not in the garden, because it was raining. But it was good. We did the traditional military. I wore a tie. No one else did. To my mum's house, just because that's what you do for military occasions and important occasions. One of the things that I did regret, actually, I would have really liked to have been in the US, actually, just to
see the tape.
Experience it from their perspective. That would have been really. I don't know.
I wonder if they even cared.
Well, I definitely know there is definitely an allegiance and a kind of like of the royal family. Well, actually, I don't know, since the Meghan Markle stuff, maybe not quite so much.
I'm led to believe that they're less popular than they were before.
Really?
Yeah, apparently they're coming across as really moany.
Would have been an interesting social experiment to see. But I did think that King Charles, did an incredible job. I thought, I definitely think that personally, he's always seemed like the distant royal a little bit in comparison with his mum. Whereas I think over the course of this weekend, he made massive leaps in looking more regal, approachable, more, whatever the phrase is. So I think he did a great job there. And I think from a leadership perspective, there's lessons there. The artist formerly known as Prince was my favourite line from the weekend. Did you see that on the concert?
I did not.
Hugh, or whatever his name was that was doing it, said the artist formerly known as Prince, which I thought was quite funny. But yeah, good weekend. No, I enjoyed it, and it was nice to go back to like old school a little bit, wasn't it? Like back to British traditions.
Oh yeah, I was getting really nostalgic watching all the troops march. I actually saw a few friends. Like my old
really
regiment was had a part. And yeah, it was brilliant. It was good. Really nice.
Anyway, so product. Let's talk about product. We've done the exciting bit. Let's go on to the product and startup stuff.
I would argue that this is the exciting bit.
I'd agree, but they might not.
I'm sure they will.
So we thought about what we're going to talk about today, and one of the things that came up, because we're right in the middle of it, is product testing and talking about, that sounds really boring when I say it like that, product testing, getting people on the platform.
Gaining feedback.
And one of the things that we spoke about was the difference between trying to sell your product, like we did last time in the last startup, trying to sell it first before you've even tested it, and actually getting it in the hands of people, and you're living that now. So what are you seeing? What are the benefits of doing it this way around rather than the other way around?
I've had several product feedback calls or beta calls or whatever you want to call them in the last couple of weeks, and they're already providing really, really valuable feedback. Now, I think I've got a few things that I would say that have come out of it. Not necessarily specific product feedback, but certainly the way that we conduct said product feedback calls. I mean, whatever you call them. And I think that there's two themes. The first theme is one, kind of framing the relationship with the person from the very beginning and making sure that it's very clear to them that you're not selling them something specifically. Not now anyway. Yeah. People, their attitudes for the calls completely switch when they realise that we're asking for their advice, really. Yeah. It kind of puts the power on them, and you could see that they appreciate it, and the way the engagements go from that moment on when that light switches is really measurable. It's pretty clear to see. And the second thing is, I think at the beginning of the process, we spoke about it a lot, and we reached out to what we called friendlies, right?
Yeah.
Friendlies for product feedback. And I think it's actually really important that you mix that gaining friendlies for product feedback, people people that are within your network, and mix that with a healthy amount of people that are potentially unfriendly.
Oh, 100%.
Because you don't want to be gaining feedback that is, let's call it nice feedback. You want to know that you're actually getting legit feedback from people rather than someone trying to spare your feelings.
And it's almost like it's, what would you say in the US, like ripping the Band-Aid off? We say pulling the plaster off, right?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing in the sense that you can go through, if you go through the pain now, so you get that hard feedback and that tough love now, that's going to serve you better. Because I think looking back again to what we've done before, you have that tendency to go, let's ask my mum about feedback on the social media content that I'm doing, right? And you're always going to get that. Oh, it's great, Craig. Yeah, really good. Really love it. But actually, the most beneficial learning journey is going to be the one where you're like, all right, give me the hard truth now so that we build better when we're going forward.
I would argue that it's not even about hard truth. It's just truth, right? Like you need to go in there with a thick skin. Like you're building something potentially that's groundbreaking, if you will, or something that hasn't been done. Like, there's no expectation you're going to get that right from the beginning. Ultimately, they're there to help you build it.
Well, I think this is another good example of, actually, where salespeople have like ruined it for product people, right? Because I've been doing the outreach, right? You've been doing all the tough love, hard feedback calls. I've been getting those meetings in the first place. And what I've seen from that outreach is that everyone presumes that you want to sell them something. Yeah. So you're immediately up against this barrier, even with other founders and anyone you speak to that's like, whoa, wait a minute, there's an ulterior motive here. And it's taking my time to convince those people and go, no, I really genuinely don't mean that. I really genuinely want to get your constructive feedback on what we're building so that the next set of people that we talk to, we do want to sell to. But right now, it's genuinely about feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I can echo that. One of the conversations I had the other day started with... now I'm going to give it to you straight. And I'm like, whoa. And this guy was an old connection of ours. Yeah. And I think, some sales friends of ours had tried to move him from one customer to another. And he thought that was what was happening here. And as soon as I kind of put that straight, the engagement was really flowing, really good. You could see the attitude changed like straight away. So yeah, definitely.
It's a great people experiment as well. Like I was saying to you the other day, even like the outreach that I'm doing now, to see and I guess this is true, this is a bit existential now, but like it's incredible to see the different attitudes of people when you approach them with these kind of things, right? And the stark contrast between... You've seen them. Like, I'll get a lovely email 1 minute that is like, of course, fellow founder, like, would love to have a look, would love to give you feedback, like, let's do it kind of thing. To the complete, literally a minute later, with the same, what you would expect to be the same persona, with someone going, don't ever contact me again. Like, I hate everything you stand for.
Rips everything that you've done apart.
It's amazing, isn't it, to see those?
I've experienced that a little bit as well. Do you remember that guy that I... had to go, in order for him to speak to anybody that cold outreached him, you had to go on his LinkedIn profile and decrypt a bit of text on his profile and read it, which had the conditions of your engagement on it.
And the difference, and this shows the difference between me and you in personalities. You actually went ahead and decrypted it. The moment I read those first 2 words, I was like, he's out. Never spoke to him again.
That's funny.
It is funny, but it's good. So I think, going through that process, getting the feedback, like speaking to people as we're going to be doing, it's just so incredibly important as we go through this journey. And I think the other interesting thing is lots of people say this, right? So lots of people say we're going to get feedback, or lots of people say almost in a kind of superficial way because it's the right thing to say. Oh, we want feedback, or we want to hear from you, or we want to learn from our customers. But the truth, or the proof in the pudding, if you like, is what you now do with that feedback. And then fitting that into what we're building and how we're building it. If you genuinely do that, then that's going to help.
For sure. And it's important to realize that when you're gaining this feedback, maybe you've spoken to 20 people, they're all going to have their own unique perspective. And remember, just because one nugget of information comes out really vehemently with one customer, it doesn't apply to all, and you have to really temper it. For example, one conversation I had the other day was heavily kind of CISO focused, very like in the weeds, talking about vulnerability management and port scanning and things like that. And actually I kind of cut in halfway through and said like, well, look, I mean, our intended audience aren't these people. And he was like, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Well, yeah, and that comes back to like we've talked about before with ICP, isn't it? And getting feedback from the right places, because you take feedback and you act upon feedback, which is absolutely right and proper, and we should do that. But if you're getting that feedback from the wrong people, then you're going to drive the product in the wrong direction, right? And to your point, if it's really deep technical knowledge from someone who's never in a million years going to buy that product that we're building, we suffered from this last time around, right? We took feedback from outside of our ICP, which took the product in a different direction, and ultimately meant we were building things that weren't necessarily the right things for our ICP.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I got a bit PTSD coming.
I saw your face then. It was disgusting. Your face isn't disgusting. It was disgusting to think about the way that startup went.
That's all right, I know what you meant. Cheers for that.
Cheers for that. So when we're looking at feed, give me something then. Give me something specific that you've heard over the last couple of weeks.
What's really interesting, actually, I've got two different perspectives. What the first perspective is that we're actually validating a lot of the conversations that we had, and a lot of the intended functionality that we're planning on building. We're getting a lot of validation of that before I've even like put it out there to them. So that is really good.
Yeah.
And the age-old adage, no plan ever survives first contact with the enemy. Fringe case. In fact, it's not even a fringe case, but we found something that we had not planned for, we hadn't developed for, and actually we put the fix in. The fix goes into production today, but just things like that, things that you would never have thought of, like a button click that you wouldn't have expected, or a typo somewhere, and it's just like blown the whole process up. So the continuous process improvement that's coming from it already is epic.
Because you get into that confirmation bias, don't you? Like we've done it all the time, where you follow this perfect flow as a product, and you're like, what will the user do? Yeah. And then you go, oh, well, clearly they're going to do this next. Clearly they're going to do that. And then the first user gets on the platform,
they're like, it don't work.
Yeah, just clicks something completely random. Just does something completely unexpected.
What's this button do?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, and the other thing, I say something that I don't know if you've got feedback on this specifically yet, but it leads me down that path of self-service, right? Because one of the things that's quite unique about what we're building here, unique in the cyberspace, maybe not so much in the SaaS space generally, but in the cyberspace, is that concept of self-service. And how easy it is. So one of the things that we did last time around in one of our startups was we turned what was originally designed to be a non-self-service kind of service-orientated product and tried to turn it into like a product-led growth self-service solution. And what we completely forgot was that concept of guiding someone through it. And the fact that when you land on that platform, because again, confirmation bias, we land on it and we go, oh, we're used to seeing this. We know what we should be doing. Whereas the user doesn't, right? And nor should they. So having that ability to guide them through the process, having the ability to make it self-service, like that's brand new. How are we approaching that? Like, have you heard any feedback on what it takes to do it yourself?
So one thing that I do when I'm on these calls, because it's very important that if you want them to sign up and use a feature on your platform, especially in beta, you get them to do it right there then in front of you. Otherwise, like the likelihood that they're going to come back to it another time is remote at best. Yeah. So where possible, where they're already a good fit and that's identified in the first few minutes of the call, I'll get them to do it and I'll just watch them. I won't guide them necessarily. Because we've got some pretty funky onboarding tools and kind of user experience type tools that we've plugged into the platform. I'll just watch them and see what they're doing. Everything obviously is recorded. I try not to take notes during the calls because I'm all about free flow conversation. So, I don't want to hamper that. And I take ages to write because my spelling's really bad. No, I'm only joking.
No, you're not.
Yeah, no, I'm not. So I'll get them to do it in front of me, and that instantly highlights those problems. Yeah. And as long as they know the kind of key elements of the screen, where they can get help, where the kind of guided walkthroughs are and stuff, that's one of the big things I do instantly on the call. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, and watching them do it themselves and guiding them through it. Yeah, I think that makes sense, because one of the things that, like, having observed a lot of these calls before and previous startups and stuff, we tend again to jump to that presumption of knowledge. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, I can do this for you. I can get you set up. And you want to dive to like, let's show them value. Let's show them value. But actually you forget that there's going to be that onboarding experience in the future.
This is discovery. So, you know, I literally want to watch them do everything without any help, really.
Yeah. And then, so if I think about that feedback, and we said it's important to listen to people, it's important to take the feedback. What are your plans for how you then, because like I'm your worst enemy in the sense that, and what he did really badly was gave me an ideas board, and now he's getting a million emails because I wake up in the morning and put 3 new ideas on the ideas board, which is good fun.
Yeah, it's good, man. I mean, that's what they're there for.
But what that does, that combined with the feedback that you're now getting from users, creates this ever-growing, and it's only going to get worse, this ever-growing list of things that we need to do, right? So how are you thinking about prioritizing that feedback in respect of kind of new features and functions and all that stuff?
It's a bit early to tell, really,
because
I mean we're only 2 weeks into the process, so the amount of feedback we've got is, although it's good, it's not huge. You know, it's not a huge data set. That being said, I think we still have a very clear plan of what we want to deliver in the first instance, and it's more about I guess I'm prioritizing user experience for the features that we already have on the roadmap.
Yeah.
Before anything else. So if like, for example, that guy that I said broke his connection within like 5 minutes, fixing that from happening in the future is more important than building some pie in the sky brand new thing. So I guess like immediate user experience things is the priority.
I love that quote and it's nothing to do with product, by the way, but I like it anyway, is it's when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, right? So like the pain of us hearing from our customers constantly that X bit of functionality is broken builds up enough that you're like, oh, we best fix that now, as opposed to just continue on the route that we were going on, you know? So yeah, I mean, I think that's incredibly important, and making sure that you prioritize. And I think it doesn't matter whether you're a multi-billion-dollar company or whether you're a startup. Like that competition between new features and functions and fixing stuff that's broken and all that is always going to build, and it's just a constant battle of getting prioritization.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the bigger you get and the more you scale up, I think you'll have dedicated teams to each specific area, so it all kind of happens at the same time. Right? Yeah. But certainly when you're a small company, you know, development resources finite, so massive weighing up game.
Yeah, and then so coming back to product, then building product, like we're in that phase where we've got this private beta. We're getting people on board. I think the really interesting next step is going to be the difference between having people use it for free and committing to paying money, right? And it's something that VCs talk about a lot. It's something that when you're going for funding rounds, people talk about a lot, because there's a massive difference, right, between having something that you can go, right, Steve, have that for free. Of course, you're going to go, fine, I'll play with it, I'll have a go. Whereas when you go, put your money where your mouth is, start paying me X amount ahead for that. What do you think that inflection point is going to look like? Like, it's tough, isn't it?
It's super tough. I honestly couldn't say at this point. I think our main features being out there, I mean, without going too deep into the backlog and stuff, I can't answer that question.
I'll answer the question.
You answer it, because
it's valuable enough now. It's valuable enough now, right? And I think we've talked about this a lot, like not underselling what you're doing, right? And I think there is a tendency as a fact. Well, maybe this is quite an English tendency. Maybe there's not. Maybe there's quite a tendency of founders to oversell, in fact, and try and sell too early, right? But for us, I think there's that undersell potential, right? There's that potential of saying, look, we've built this, but actually we know how much is coming, and therefore let's wait, which is really important, and kind of the top of this podcast we were talking about, like going into that beta phase, but what we didn't talk about is before, because actually making that first decision to go, do you know what? All right, I'm going to put it into the hands of customers now, or potential customers, is a huge leap.
Oh,
right?
God, yeah. We fretted on it for ages, didn't we? Yeah, totally. I think now you've mulled it over for about 3 seconds. I think actually in terms of features with our cloud security feature, I think that's probably enough to sell, but the wrapper around it of the platform isn't quite enough. So things like user management, having more than one user on the platform for any one company, a modicum of user settings and security settings, things like that. I think once we've got those, we could probably sell it as it is.
So so that's product, that's private beta. There's a bit of, I don't like this phrase, but there's a bit of building in public that we're doing here, which I think is quite cool. So I think as we go through this journey, we can continue to share what we're seeing, as the beta gets bigger, as we start to go to release, we can talk about kind of what that journey looks like, and hopefully it will add some value to people as they're on their journey as well.
Absolutely.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, we've talked a little bit about product. Thanks for joining us this week. Next week, we'll be talking about other things that we haven't quite decided
yet. To be determined.
Yet to be, depending on how painful this week is for Steve and product feedback, we'll talk about something different.
Fair enough.
Thanks for joining us. You've been listening to How to Fuck Up a Startup. We fucked up, so you don't have to.